Hello and Namaskar. Welcome to another session of BW4HANA Tidbits, where I share some of my knowledge and experience. My name is Devanshu Mukherjee, and today we are going to see projects in Eclipse for BW4HANA and S4HANA. When we deal with BW4HANA and S4HANA, we have to create projects, and what are the prerequisites for that, and how do we create it, and what are the types of projects for us to work in BW4HANA and S4HANA is very important for someone who is transitioning into the Eclipse world. So today we look into that, and first we'll go through a little bit of theory, and then we will do it in the system so that you understand end to end. So without any further ado, let's get started. Alright, so let's look at the projects in Eclipse for BW4HANA and S4HANA. So these are the types of projects you will be mostly working with when you will work with BW4HANA or S4HANA. So before we go into the details of the types, let's first define what is a project, and then we will also look at the prerequisite for the project, and then we will finally go into the types of project. So the definition of a project. What is a project when we talk about Eclipse? Well, project is a connection to the backend server, and that server can be a BW4HANA system, that can be a S4HANA system, that can be some other SAP system. So when we are talking about SAP systems, a project is basically a connection to your application server, the actual server, which houses all your objects and your development, and you connect to the server via a project. So in a layman's term, it's just a connection between the Eclipse software and the backend system or the backend server. What are the prerequisites before you can create a project? So before you can create a project in Eclipse, the first thing what you have to do is basically to add them in the SAP Logon pad. So if I quickly shift here to the SAP Logon pad, you will see that I have a list of connections under this folder Get Trained, and we have BW4HANA 2.0 SP7 server, we have the 2.0 SP4 server, and we also have the S4HANA 1909 server. And you can see we have the system IDs, group, server applications, host name, and the instance IDs, etc. Those details are already added. This is a prerequisite. Before adding the project in the Eclipse, you have to do this. If you do not do this, then your Eclipse will not show you the list of servers you can connect to. So first thing is you can just add this, and if I quickly go to the properties, so when you add it, it will ask you for the description, application server, instance number, system ID, etc. And then you can add easily to the Logon pad. So the role of Logon pad has not gone away. Logon pad is still a mandatory thing, and you have to download this Logon pad if you don't have it from Service Marketplace, and then you add your systems. Once you add your systems, then you will come back to Eclipse and add all your different projects, and I'll show you that step by step. But before doing that into the system, let's quickly jump back to the theory and complete the types of project, and then we'll go back to Eclipse and I'll show you how to add them. Alright, so there are two types of project for S4HANA, and there are two types of projects for BW4HANA. And let's talk about S4HANA first, and then we will talk about BW4HANA. So when you connect to S4HANA from Eclipse, the types of project you will deal with most of the times are ABAP project type and BW project type. So when do you use ABAP project type? You will use ABAP project type when you want to access S4HANA tables. You want to access CDS views, ABAP CDS views, S4HANA ABAP CDS views, which is basically embedded analytics. That's what it's made up of, the CDS views. And this is the most frequently used project when you will deal with S4HANA. Because when we deal with S4HANA, we are primarily concerned with the transaction codes and the application tables and the CDS views, etc. That's why ABAP is the most frequently used project type for S4HANA. You also have the second project type for S4HANA, which is BW type of project. So when do we go for BW type of a project? When we want to access the embedded BW sitting inside S4HANA. There you will actually create a project of type BW and then connect to the objects there. It is heavily used when you will deal with BPC optimized for S4HANA. So BPC has one of the offerings or one of the versions as BPC optimized for S4, and that's where your embedded BW will be heavily used, where you will create your advanced DSOs, your planning functions, your aggregation level, everything inside the embedded BW, and you will have to create the BW type of a project and deal with them. And it is also used when you are dealing with the ABAP CDS views, which is nothing but your embedded analytics, and when they generate something called a transient provider, you can create a BEX query on top of those transient provider, and you can create your BEX queries and then work with them. That is also an option when you are using the embedded BW. And why I am talking about BEX queries, why I'm not saying Eclipse based queries, because the embedded BW which sits inside S4 cannot be a BW4 HANA system. The highest version an embedded BW can go up to is BW 7.5 on HANA. So that's why we still have the concept of BEX there, and that's why I'm saying BEX queries are created on top of the transient providers which are generated out of the CDS views. And there's a T code which is called RSRT_ODP_DIS to view the generated transient provider. And also when SAP Analytics Cloud connects to the S4HANA CDS views, they actually connect to the transient providers which are generated out of those CDS views. So when you will deal with all this, you will basically deal with the BW type of a project for the system S4HANA. Now, coming to BW system. So our backend server is now BW, it's no longer S4HANA, and there also we have two types of project. BW type of a project and ABAP type of a project. So when do we go for BW type of a project? When you want to access your composite providers, your advanced DSOs, your OpenODS views, etc. Right? So all the standard or custom BW objects you will deal with in your BW type of a project. Also, when you will deal with Eclipse based queries, which are the new type of queries within Eclipse, you can create them. When you will deal with them, you will of course work in BW project type. And when you will access the BPC embedded, which was formerly known as BWIP integrated planning, and now it is part of the BPC embedded, where you will actually use a separate BW, not an embedded BW inside S4. This is now a separate BW server, and when you will activate BW add-on on it, then you can use the planning function, aggregation levels, etc. So all that you will also deal with in BW type of a project. And this is the most frequently used project type for BW4HANA. Sorry about the typo there. So this is the most frequently used project type you will use when you will deal with BW4HANA. And then there is a second type of a project for BW4HANA system, which is ABAP type of a project. And when do we go for that? When you want to view data from BW tables such as advanced DSO tables like active table, inbound table, changelog tables, etc. When you actually want to see the data there and you want to go at a table level and access the data, you will have to create an ABAP project type. Second usage, when you want to write codes like your AMDP based start routine, end routine, field routines, you want to write any of your ABAP code or your SQL script based AMDP code, then you will have to create and use the ABAP type of a project. And finally, when you are wanting to access the definition of BW tables like advanced DSO tables, then also you will have to go for ABAP type of a project. So to summarize, for S4HANA, there are two types of project. For BW4HANA also, there are two types of project. Based on what is your customer scenario, you will have to either create and use both the types or not. For BW4HANA, 99% of the time you will have to create both the type of project. But for S4HANA, You might not need a BW type of a project if you're not dealing with BPC or SAC. But if you are, then you have to create both ABAP and BW type of a project. So with that, we come to the end of the theory, and now let's jump into the system and I'll show you how to create those projects and how to access the objects within those projects. All right, so now let's look into the system and try to create those types of projects. So here you see I already have one BW4 HANA BW type of project, BW4 HANA ABAP type of a project, S4 HANA ABAP type, and S4 HANA BW type. Now this is the naming convention I have used, and you can use the same just to easily identify what type of a project this is. But this will not be the default. It will not show you that this is BW or this is ABAP. Just because I have given it a naming convention like that, you can easily differentiate between them. So we'll start from scratch. So we will first select everything and we'll just delete these projects. Don't worry. By deleting the project, you are not actually deleting the systems or anything from the actual server. This is just a connection, just like adding or deleting the application servers in the Logon pad. You're just deleting it from the Eclipse. So I'll just say okay. And I'm not deleting things on the disk. I want to keep them because we have to recreate them, and things will be faster if the disk already has those configurations. Okay, so this is a clean slate now. And as a prerequisite, as I told you, you have to first have these systems added. So for my case, in my case, we have the BW4 HANA added, we have the S4 HANA added, and we are going to access them now. So in the Eclipse, on the Project Explorer side, and you have to make sure you are in the BW modeling perspective. If I click here, a small icon where you can open the different perspectives, you will see that we have different types of perspectives here. We have ABAP related perspectives, we have BW perspective, and we also have HANA related perspectives, right? So right now we are dealing with BW. Okay, so first we will deal with BW. So we will create both types of project, BW type of project connecting to BW server, and ABAP type of project also connecting to BW server. So we'll choose BW modeling. So you make sure you have chosen that. And then in the Project Explorer, if you don't see this Project Explorer, you can go to Window, Show View, and click on Other. And here you can just type Project, and you will see Project Explorer is there. So we have Project Explorer. We also have some other views here, Systems View, we have Info Provider View, we have Outline View, and we have Project Explorer View. So in the Project Explorer View, you right click on the empty space and just say New Project, and then it will ask you what type of project do you need, right? So we have different types of project. We have general type of project, we have ABAP, we have BW, we have Java, etc. Now the one which we are interested in will be BW. So now first we will create the BW type of a project connecting to BW. So we'll click on Next. Now this is where you will see that your systems will be added, and this is where the system is accessing the Logon pad exe file, where it is showing you all the systems which are already added. So for us, it is this one, BW4 HANA 2.0 SP4. We'll connect to that. We click on Next. Automatically, the details like application server, instance number, etc. will be taken from the Logon pad file. So you don't have to provide anything here. You can leave it as it is. If you want to activate the secure network connection, you can do that. But in our case, we don't need that right now. So we'll leave it unchecked. Click on Next. Now it's going to ask you client and your user ID and your password. So client is 100, user ID is BW4 HANA 3 for me, and then I will use the password provided to me by the server vendor. And you click on Next. It's going to check, it's retrieving the compatibility information from the backend system. It's also checking your password, whether it's valid or not, and it's doing other whole bunch of checks and balances before it can actually connect to the actual BW server. It, for the first time, if you're doing it, it might take few seconds because it's doing it for the first time, and it checks the configuration files, it loads it into the cache, and so on. So it might take some time. As you can see, I don't have anything added. We are starting a fresh clean slate. That's why it's taking a little bit of time. But once it has checked everything and everything looks hunky-dory, then you come to the next screen, which is your project name. Now by default, it will propose you this name, which is BW4 HANA, which is the system ID, the client number, the user ID with which you are logging in, and the logon language. But I personally don't prefer that. So what we'll do is we'll give a number first, underscore, we'll give a BW4 HANA. This is a BW4 HANA system. And then I will say that this is the type of project is BW. Or you can also say project BW. Now I don't give the client number because usually for BW, the client number is the same across the landscape. Okay, we don't have multiple clients for BW usually. In ECC or S4 HANA, you see that concept, and that too, especially in development and quality systems, not in production. But for BW, it's mostly the same across. And then you can add this project to a working set, and you can see I have different working sets here. So you can add that to your get trained. If you don't have one, you can create a new working set. Like for example, let's create YouTube BW4 tidbits. So I'm doing this for tidbits. So I'll create that and I will say finish. So now you can see I have a working set. Why is this important? Because say for example, you have different servers from different vendors. So one vendor has given you BW and S4, the other vendor has given you CRM and SRM, and the other vendor has given you something else. And you don't want to see all the systems in your Project Explorer. You would like to have a choice whether I want to see the servers from one vendor or the other vendor, right? So there these working sets comes into picture, and I have added this particular system in the working set YouTube BW4 HANA tidbit. So only these systems will be shown to me if I select the working set from here. You see, I'll show you that once you have added it, and you can access them via these three ellipses option. So we'll click on next. It's saying attach the HANA database. We don't want to attach here, but in your requirement, if you want to attach your HANA system, then you can easily do that. When do we do that? When you have a hybrid modeling kind of a requirement where you are using calculation views, you are creating calculation views and then using them back into your composite provider. So you don't have to switch back and forth between systems view and your BW modeling view. You can see all the native HANA content and the packages and calculation views you created right in your BW modeling perspective. So that's where it is used. But for now, we don't have that requirement, so I'm not going for that. Just click on finish, and you will see that it is again doing some checks and balances, retrieving compatibility information, and also it's going to rename the project. So here, just give it a few seconds. On the left hand side, if everything goes well, you will see that it will be added. Now why it is not, if you don't see it, that means you have to select the working set. Remember we created working set. So I'll go here, and you can see here I have something called YouTube BW4 HANA tidbits. The moment you select that, only the systems added for that working set will be shown to you. All right, so this is our first project we added, and this is of type BW. And another way, if you don't want to rely on the naming convention, because that is user specific, the user is free to choose any name. If you don't want to rely on that, then your sure shot pointer is BW repository header. In a type of project which is BW, you will see always something called BW repository. If you don't see this, that means it's of type something else, not BW project. It might be ABAC, it might be something else. But whenever you create a project of type BW, you will have BW repository definitely there. Now let's create a second type of project. So again, to create a second type of project, again for BW system, but this time the project type is ABAC, right? And okay, let's do one thing. Without creating the ABAC project, let me show you where you will get stuck, or where you will get a roadblock if you don't have an ABAC. So if you go back to the theory quickly for a second, you will see that we need ABAC project type for BW when we want to access the data or the definition for BW tables, right? So let's try to do that. So if you come back here, I will just expand the favorites. I'll just expand my info area, and I'll just go to a particular, say for example, ADSO, right? So if I take this transaction sales item ADSO, double click on that, you will see the definition of that ADSO in the right hand side editor, and the definition of that ADSO will tell you what kind of ADSO is this. So here it is a data mart type of an ADSO, which is nothing but a cube of the past. And now it will also expand it to you and show you where exactly this ADSO is placed. So if you want that kind of functionality where whatever you open in the main editor, on the navigation pane on the left hand side, exactly it drills down and points you where it is located, you have to have this small checkbox enabled, which is called link with editor. What that enables is whatever you open on the right hand side, it will expand the hierarchy of info areas and it will exactly highlight where it is housed. Okay, so now I have this ADSO. If I click on the properties here, again this is a view. If you don't find the view, you can go to Windows, show view, and you can activate that. So if I click here, you will see, sorry, I have to first click, make sure I have clicked on the editor, and then I will click here. You will see general and DDIC. So I'll go to DDIC, data dictionary, and there we have inbound table, active table, reporting view, etc. I want to display the data from inbound table, or say for example active table, right? Because for a data mart, active table is the most frequently used table. So I want to see the data from the active table. The moment I clicked on it, it immediately threw me a window, and it says select an ABAP type of a project for system BW4 HANA. Now I don't have, okay. So you don't have to cancel this. You don't have to go back and create. Right here, there's an option called new, which will enable you to create an ABAP type of a project. So now we'll choose ABAP. Previously, when we created the first one, it was BW. Now we'll create ABAP. We'll click on next. And then again, the list of systems from the SAP Logon pad is given to us. We will scroll down and choose again the same system, BW. Okay. The system is the same, only the type of project is changing. So we'll click on next. Again, the same application server, instance number, everything is given to you. Click on next, and then client is same. This is same password you can use. So I'll just give that password. Oh, sorry about that. So I'll just give that password. Okay, and I'll just click on next. Again, it's checking the compatibility information. And this time it should be slightly faster because we have already done it once and we have created a project of type BW, and now we are connecting to the same system, but the type of project is ABAP. And why this was required? Because now we are trying to access the tables at an data dictionary level and try to see the view. So whenever you want to see something at a data dictionary level, or whenever you want to write a code for your routines or for transformations or anything else, then you will need an ABAP type of a project. Okay, so let's give it a few seconds, and now you will see that I will be able to create an ABAP type of a project, and this project type will also be visible on the project explorer. Just because you have created it from this window while accessing the data of the table, it doesn't mean that in the project explorer it won't show up. All types of project will show up there, provided you are looking at the working set which you want to, and you have added this particular system or the project in that particular working set. So here I will just change the name. I'll just give 01 BW4 HANA, and this is the project type of ABAP. And again, I will add this to the same YouTube BW4 HANA tidbits working set and click on finish. So again, it's checking few things, and don't worry, you don't have to do this every time. You just have to do this once, and once you have added your projects, at the end of the day, when you are done with your work, you can just log off from the project, and don't delete the project, just log off, and I'll show you how to do that. And once you come back the next day, you can easily log back in and continue your work. So this adding the project and providing the working set and providing the password and all is a one-time. Password, though, you might have to provide every time you log off and log in, but the other things like adding the project, etc. You don't have to do it multiple times. Okay, so let's give it a few more seconds. Okay, there it is. So now we have, if you see here in the Project Explorer, we have now two types of project. And the reason I am using this numbering concept is because I want to keep these two types of project together, right, adjacent to each other, because both are connected to the same system, which is BW4 HANA system. So this is of type project ABAP. Now if you expand this, you will not see something called BW repository, and it's gonna expand your ABAP repository tree information. Okay, and you will see that you have local objects, which is $TMP, you have your favorite packages, and you have your system library. You will not see something called BW repository. If you see BW repository, that means it's of type BW project. Okay, so now the system found an ABAP project and it showed me the content of my active table. Unfortunately, there is no data here right now, but if there have been a data, then you would see that here. So that's where you will need the ABAP type of a project for BW. Another occasion where you will need that is when you will write the code. When you will write the start routine, end routine, expert routine, field routine codes, or AMDP or ABAP, doesn't matter. You will need an ABAP type of a project. All right. So this is all about the project types for BW. Now let's connect to S4 HANA system for both the type of project. So again, I'll do right click here, new project, and I will say ABAP, because the type of project which is most frequently used for S4 HANA is ABAP. Click on next, and then again the SAP Logon pad system will be listed here. Click on S4 HANA this time, not BW, because the system we are connected to is S4 HANA. Click on next. All the details are already pulled up from the Logon pad file, and click on next. And now the client is 200 for my S4 HANA, and the user ID is same, and the password I will provide the password which I have received from the administrators or your server vendors. So same thing here, it's going to check for the compatibility information, your password is valid or not, and you see if it's faster than before, because now it is storing things in your cache and it won't be as slow. Now all the S4 HANA I want to give it 02, and this is my S4 HANA, and then this is my project ABAP, and I'm going to add this to the same BW4 HANA tidbits working set, and I'll click on finish. It's going to again retrieve some other information and the compatibility information, and it will add the project on the left hand side. So because of the numbering, it cannot come before any BW project listing or in the middle. It will always go at the end, because 2 is after 1. So if you want to maintain this kind of sequential numbers when it comes to project, you can apply this naming terminology, or you can use your own choice. So this is of ABAP. So we will not see anything called BW repository. We will just see the $TMP, our favorites ones, and the system library. That's the characteristic of an ABAP type of a project. And this is the one you will most frequently use. So if, say for example, if I want to look at SE11 or SE16 or any other T code, just press Ctrl 6, that is the shortcut. It's going to ask you which project you want to connect to. You can browse and choose, but by default it will show you the one which you are already on. For me it is S4 HANA ABAP type of project. Yes, I want to choose this one, and it's going to open the transaction code based SAP GUI inside the Eclipse. So you don't have to navigate out of Eclipse if you want to run any T codes. You can stay in Eclipse and do all your T code related work. So say for example, I want to go to SE11, just type SE11 and it will show you that table, and you can go to a table, say Mara, or let's take AC Doka, which is the most famous table for actuals for finance in S4 HANA. And then you can see everything from here. It will be visible to you and you can easily navigate across. So you don't have to go to Logon pad anymore. You can do everything within Eclipse. But if you still want to go to it, the option is always there for you. Okay, so this is of type ABAP project when we are connecting to S4 HANA, and I told you that this is the most frequently used. And by the way, I now am looking at the definition of ACDOCA as a CDS table. So this is a CDS language, and because it is selected, it navigated and expanded to the definition of ACDOCA table, which is a universal journal entry for line items, FI line items, actuals, and this is for actuals. So it will show you exactly where it is housed, and you can of course add this to your favorite, right? I can right click on maybe this particular package, and I can say that I want to add this to my favorites package, so that every time you want to see all the financial related tables, you can directly come here. So this is the definition. Or if you want to see the for example, I want to see the data, then you can easily go to SE16, and then you can also see the data for this table. So it's all there. Your usual look and feel, what we used to have in Logon pad, is also visible here. Okay, so now with the ABAP type of project, we are done. Now the final one for S4 HANA, we will create again. So you can say new project, and the project type this time is BW. So we'll expand BW and we'll go next. But now here, instead of BW system, we will actually choose the same S4 HANA system, because the backend system is S4 HANA, the backend server is S4 HANA, but the type of project is BW. So click on next. Everything you can leave it as it is. Click on next, give the password. Oops, I clicked on enter there. So that means if you click on enter, you will not get a chance to rename the project. The name of the project will be taken as the default. If I press enter here, if I don't press next, enter means finish. So basically after this screen, you will see I didn't get an option to add that to the working project working set, and also I didn't have a chance to rename it. So that means by default it will go to some other working set, and it might not be visible for you here. If you want to make it visible, what you can say is, you can say that window working set. So if you see window working set, all your projects will be listed, and you can see here the one which we were looking for is this one, which is S4 HANA 200 BW4 HANA 3. This is the standard or default naming convention by the system. We don't want that, right? So what you can do, log off from this project. And how do you log off from the project? Right click on the project and you can say close project. Closing a project is nothing but logging off from the project. So you will see this, the folder will be closed, and we don't like the naming convention, so I'm going to get rid of this project, and I can, for this one, I can see delete from the disk because I don't want this at all, so it's gone. Again, you see, if I don't want to see the whole list of all these systems, I can go here, select my project set, and only those particular systems will be visible. Okay, now let's do it again. So new project, and the type is BW project. Click on next, and the system we are choosing is S4 HANA. Click there, next, give the password, and then don't hit enter. Click next here because we want to rename the project, and also we want to add it to the working set, project working set. So it's again going to check some compatibility information, your password, etc. And then now you can see another window where you can have the opportunity to rename it. So I'm going to give it S4 HANA and project type is BW. And I'm going to add this to the working set. Click on next. I want to attach. Do you want to attach? Yeah, one more thing. If you observe carefully, if you have followed this video from the start, you will see that attaching the HANA system only comes for BW type of a project, not ABAP. Because when we deal with BW, we are dealing with the composite providers, we are dealing with the ADSOs, etc. And that's where your hybrid modeling comes into picture. That means with BW, you can combine your native HANA modeling. Calculation views, if you create, you can use it in the composite provider, so on and so forth. So because of the mixed modeling or hybrid modeling scenario, only for BW type of a project, right, you can have the native HANA database attached to this particular project. That's why this attach HANA system will only come for BW project types, not ABAC project types. So click on finish, and now we should see the fourth system at the end, which will say Proj BW for S4HANA. So again, it's retrieving some compatibility information, and it's almost done. Let's give it a few more seconds, and we will see the fourth system there on the left hand side in the Project Explorer. And this fourth system will have a header called repository or not. It will have, right? Because this is a type of a project BW. You can see here now the fourth entry is here. If you expand that, it will show you BW repository. And if you expand that, you will see all the different artifacts created there. And again, when do we use a project type of BW for S4HANA system? Let's go back to the theory. We will use that when we are using the embedded BW inside the S4HANA, which is most frequently seen in BPC optimized for S4HANA, or it is also frequently seen when you are dealing with the embedded analytics CDS views, which generates a transient provider and you create a BEX query on top of that. And this BW system, my friends, is not BW4HANA. The embedded BW is not BW4HANA. It is BW 7.5 on HANA. That's the highest one. It can be lower than that, but the highest it can go is 7.5 on HANA. So with this presentation comes to an end, and I hope it helped you understand that what are the different project types, when do we go for different project types for S4HANA versus for BW4HANA. And with this information, I wish you all the best for all your projects. And I will implore you to use Eclipse as much as possible. Now that you can run all your T codes within Eclipse, you don't have to navigate out of Eclipse. So use Eclipse, get familiar, and do good in your project. Thank you very much for listening. I hope this helped you. And next ones, I will further delve into what kinds of tips and tricks you can have to have a better productivity in Eclipse. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next one.